when you when you are um, when you are going to plant your seeds, that number of days is going to help you to know how your season is going to go. Now, if you think about it, we wouldn't be planting, say, a pumpkin until probably the end of May, early June. So you're talking June, July, August, September, maybe 100 days. You're pushing it. You're pushing it, right? So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking for varieties to grow here in Colorado. You might want to go for those that have the shorter days. Oops, why am I not getting to move here? There we go. Oops, too far. Succession planting, particularly with those spring vegetables, is very, very possible in doing this. So you can either plant them, let's say, every 3 weeks or so, and just continue to succession plant them there, or you can let them go and then maybe plant the middle of August for that fall garden. So succession planting, and we do a lot of that at Hudson Gardens. As soon as we pull up radishes, we plant more. That's their one that's 30 days, you're set to go. You've got nice size radishes. So we tend to do a lot of succession planting so that all the time our garden beds look full and flush. Now, with basil, I will do this as well. I usually plant it in a big pot, but even if you're planting it in the ground, plant some, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, plant some more, so that if we do have a really hot time, a hot month, and all that basil is either frying, it's getting dried leaves, or it's sending up its seed heads, you have some new that is coming along, and you can do that with a lot of these cool season vegetables. Fertilization. The question is not to really say what kind of fertilizer I should use or what brand, but when should I use it? And it really doesn't matter. All fertilizers are going to have salt in them. This is really a choice that you as the consumer can make, but it's when you should use it that is the really big question, whether it's for your turf or for your vegetable garden. So when you use a fertilizer early, you are particularly trying to get that good vegetative growth that's going to give you the strong stems and sturdy plants that will hold up with the wind and that kind of thing. So you want to apply fertilizer early, and maybe every couple of weeks. Don't overdo it. Don't apply it real heavily, but you can either scratch it into the soil or you can use a liquid. It doesn't really matter. And then you want to, some plants are heavy feeders like tomatoes. So you may want to add some more, let's say in July or so, you'll want to do more fertilizer. And when should you not apply fertilizer? Anytime your vegetable is starting to set fruit. So tomatoes, when it starts to set fruit, you cut off the fertilizer because you're no longer wanting it to grow a lot of green foliage. You want the plant to send its energy now to creating the fruit, whether it's a bean or a tomato or a pepper. You don't need any more tall growth. What you need is the fruit. So that's when you should stop applying fertilizer. And frost protection, particularly in the spring when you're planting in the spring. There are many different methods for frost protection for your plants. Here you see a wall of water, and this was May 24th, 2002. So see, we can get a lot of late spring frost and snow. The wall of waters, you fill those cylinders with water, and the sun warms the water, and it helps to keep the plant warm inside that area. They're a little bit of a pain to use because it's hard to hold them and fill each one of those cylinders. almost takes 2 people to do this, but they do work quite well. A lot of what we use at Hudson Gardens are floating row covers of varying thicknesses of row cover. This is a fabric type material, and we use them for frost protection, but mostly, in all honesty, we use them for critter control and pest control. But you can use plastic. Some people put black plastic or red plastic on their garden beds, and helps to warm up that soil so that when you plant, particularly your warm season plants, that soil is going to be nice and toasty for them because they don't like cold soil. Or there are cloches that you can buy as well, which act as frost protection. So be thinking about that when you are planning your garden, that you have some way to cover it if needed. Okay, let's take a look at some of the questions here. Let me look in the chat box and see if there are ones that have not been answered. Or Kathy, can you tell me if there are ones
that? Deb, we're okay right now.
Okay, perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Great. And I'm watching the time, Donna. I'm watching the time. Okay. So they know me too well. See. All right. So cool season. So what does it mean when we say a cool season vegetable? Well, there are 2 types of cool season vegetables. There's hardy vegetables and there's semi-hardy vegetables. Some of the hardy ones would be like broccoli, cabbage, leeks, kale, kohlrabi, peas, spinach. These are for plants that can take or seeds that can take soil temperatures that are somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees. So and they can handle some of the freezing temperatures. Not if it's going to be more than just maybe a couple or 2 or 3 days, then you're going to need it would be better to cover them, but they can take an overnight frost. They'll be just fine. Now you see the Swiss chard there. Swiss chard is semi-hardy. Swiss chard, the soil really needs to be around between 40 and 45 degrees. So the daytime temperatures are going to be fairly warm. They're going to be around the same, maybe 45 to 50. Okay. They're not going to take as much frost or cold as the hardy cool season. So you'll want to be able to provide them with some sort of cover, even if it's like an old sheet or an old blanket that you could put on for the night. It would be a good idea. Okay. There are also, I don't have any pictures of them, but there are also some perennial vegetables. One is asparagus. You buy the crowns, you would plant those crowns usually around mid-April to mid-May, and you allow those crowns to then produce they call it's like a fern. Okay, and you leave those, and you don't. Asparagus really needs to be established for several years before you can start taking and cutting a lot of the spears of asparagus. So the first maybe 3 years, you are just going to allow the plants to grow up, have those ferns, have the seeds, all of that, just have the normal lifespan that they would have in one garden season. And then around that 3rd season, you can start taking some spears. And all this time, you're just trying to get those crowns established and well, growing really, really well in the area where you have them. After that, then, once they're really established, then you can start cutting more of the asparagus each year. But it takes a while to get asparagus beds going and producing well. Horseradish is another one that is a perennial. And if you like to have fresh horseradish, it's great to do. And you can usually plant that somewhere between mid-March and mid-April, and you're going to look for those roots in the garden centers that you participate in. And the asparagus too, there are a few varieties that do better here in Colorado, and there are listed on the suggested vegetable varieties handout. So some of the other ones that you find maybe in some of the big box stores may not be the variety that will do well here. And since it takes so long to get this established, you want to start out with the best crowns that you can find. So as far as horseradish, you'll be looking for the root, and wherever you plant it, you are going to want to be able to contain it because it will spread. And I don't think you want horseradish everywhere in your garden. So you're going to want to contain that. And sometimes people, like I have taken a big pot, I cut out the bottom, and let's say maybe a 7-gallon pot or a 10-gallon pot even. And I dig down in the ground and I set it inside there, and then I fill it back up with soil and plant my horseradish. I do this with mint as well because it can be a little bit invasive. So you can do that, and that will help to contain the horseradish in the area where you want it to be. Another one is rhubarb. And rhubarb you would buy around this time of year. You can plant it usually when the soil temperature is around 50 degrees. So it's going to want it a little bit warmer before you plant that. And you can buy the crowns or the plants at garden centers. And the first couple of years, don't harvest much. Here's another one that really needs time to get established in your garden. And then it will expand and you can start harvesting more. And I have a rhubarb plant that was actually at my in-laws' house that we transplanted. It's probably about 65 years old now, and it is still producing just fabulously. But when you first start them, they really do need a little bit of time there to get going. So cool season. Maybe you want to grow something really fun in your garden with your grandchildren or your children. Red, white, and blue potatoes. I did this one time. We had red, white, and blue potatoes, and we had rainbows of carrots. You can find all different kinds, Easter egg radishes. So there are a lot of fun things that you can do to attract children to your gardens or to help your kids know and learn to love gardening. Okay, well, why are you not going? There we go. Oops. Okay, we're going to talk about some specific cool season vegetables right now, and we're going to start with beets. This is a semi-hardy. Remember, it needs to have a little bit more warmer ground before you plant them. And there are many different varieties of beets that do well here in Colorado. Some of the ones that we particularly like, Avalanche is the white beet that you see there. Golden beets are that kind of orangey color. Those do really well. They're really sweet. Chioggia is a red beet, but when you cut it open, it has some white stripes inside. So that's kind of fun if you're trying to get your kids to eat beets. Other ones that do really well are bull's blood or the Detroit dark red. And some of these are really old varieties. And maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about heirloom plants. Heirloom plants, you'll see some plants labeled as heirloom, particularly when it comes to tomatoes, you'll see heirloom. And the interesting thing about this is that there's not really a definitive definition of what an heirloom variety is. It varies sometimes with seed companies. It varies with different gardening groups. Some say it's a variety that has to have been around for at least 50 years. I've also seen it just defined as it has to have been passed down in one family for generations. And so there are a lot of different definitions out there for heirloom. And so it may actually depend on the variety that you're looking at. And usually they are considered to be an open pollinated, so they're not a hybrid, open pollinated. You can save the seeds, and your next year's, if you use those seeds, your plants will come back true to form. With a hybrid, and you'll see hybrids that if you save those seeds, you may get one or the other of the parents. So it's best not to save those, with some exceptions. There is a hybrid tomato called Celebrity. This is one I grow. It was actually developed in the 1940s. So after this many generations, you are probably going to get, I'm not saying 100%, but probably going to get, if you save the seeds, you're going to get a plant that is going to produce the same tomatoes. So there is really nothing wrong with using hybrid vegetables. Sometimes they are more disease resistant. And when we talk about tomatoes, we'll talk about that specifically. But just to kind of throw that out there, so sometimes they have been developed to have better flavor or better, as I said, disease resistance. So just a little side note there. Beets are a pelleted seed. And that means that when you open the seed packet and you see what comes out the beets, that's several seeds that have been kind of molded together with an inert ingredients, and then they dry them. And so when you plant them, you may get 4 or 5 beets that are growing in the same space. And so thinning is definitely necessary for beets to get rid of some of those little seedlings. They do this because those beet seeds are so small that it would be very difficult to individually plant them. So a pelleted seed makes it easier for the consumer, easier for the garden to plant those in a nice row, but you're going to have to thin them. And some other varieties of beets. One that I grow in my garden every year is called Lutz, and it's the very last one on the beet list. This is a really good winter keeper, and even though you can leave it in the garden and it gets really, really big, it is not woody, which sometimes you will find with some of the other varieties if you happen to not harvest for a while, and they can get woody. But Lutz is one that does not get woody at all. So the Brassicaceae family is a huge family. Sometimes you'll hear them called Brassicaceae, but this is a huge family in the plant world. And the vegetables that are contained there, you can see it's a long list: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collard greens, kale, kohlrabi, turnips, radishes, rutabagas, and Swiss chard, all of which we can grow in our gardens. A couple of notes: Brussels sprouts really like it cooler and more humidity than we have here. You can grow the plants, and usually you might want to even hold off a little bit and maybe plant them later in the season so that we have that cool weather in the fall. They're going to be much smaller than you see maybe some that you buy in the store. We just don't have, we can do it, but it's not going to be fabulous big Brussels sprouts. And they are aphid magnets. These plants are aphid magnets. The aphids, you'll get them on your broccoli or Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Yeah, a lot of these are aphid magnets. Collard greens, not so much. We do pretty well. So if you can have some row cover for a while for those, it's a good idea. Cauliflower, we can grow cauliflower here. We won't get the big heads that you see in the store, but with cauliflower, I'm just going to use this cabbage plant as an example here. All those big leaves, you have to gather it up around the small cauliflower that's down in the middle to keep it, to have that white coloring when you harvest it. If you leave it, it's going to turn kind of a pinkishy purpley color because it's going to get too much sun. So it really needs to have that I have grown cauliflower here at my house personally, and I think it takes too much work, so and too much space. So there are other things that I would like, more tomatoes or more peppers or something. But anyway, kohlrabi is kind of fun to grow with kids because it looks kind of like a spaceship as it grows. It's an above ground ball, and it has these leaves that kind of shoot out. It sort of looks like Sputnik. I'm probably dating myself there, but if you know what Sputnik looked like. Radishes are great to grow with children, or if you have something, let's say like you're growing parsnips or something like that. It's good to throw radish seeds in there because radishes will germinate very quickly, very, very quickly. And it's fun for kids because they plant them, and then by a couple of weeks, they're coming up. And so they see quickly some fruits of their labor there. So big family. Carrots are semi-hardy, so they're going to want that little bit warmer soil before you plant those seeds. And carrots, the seeds are very small, and they get planted barely underneath the ground. So you're going to have to be sure to keep those carrot seeds moist. Otherwise, they are not going to germinate. And this is one problem that people have when trying to grow carrots, is they don't keep the seeds moist enough. And it's hard sometimes when we have windy days. And, so if you can put maybe a row cover over them to keep the moisture in, that might help a little bit. So just so you know, they are hard to germinate, a little bit hard to germinate. So have some patience with those. They're also an interesting vegetable because they're a biennial, which means that what you see here, this vegetative growth and the carrot that grows down in the ground, you can harvest it this year, but if you leave it, then next year it's actually going to bloom and produce seeds. This is how they get carrot seeds. It does not produce its seeds in the first year. Now, occasionally you'll get one in your garden that maybe has gotten mixed up or something, and you'll get one that will flower. The carrot itself is going to be really woody. So if you get one like that, just pull it up and get rid of it, or you can leave it and see if it actually will flower. It's kind of a pretty flower and you can save the seeds, but it's a little bit unusual and in a vegetable in that it is a biennial. And again, you can actually buy pelleted carrot seeds now, and definitely you're going to have to thin, but usually you want to thin your carrots or you're not going to get very good production. And also, I think here in Colorado, it's better to have maybe some of the shorter varieties, not the real long ones like you see in this picture over here, but some of the shorter varieties. And Danvers half long is a good one. Coruta tender sweet is one I grow in my garden. And so those work fairly well because of our clayey soils. And sometimes we have clots down there or rocks down, whatever. The shorter varieties don't need as loose a soil to grow in. You can grow them in some soil that's a bit harder there. And also the tops are edible as well. We don't think about that sometimes, but they are edible. Okay. Lettuce, arugula, the mosh, and the mesclun. These are very quick. Seed to harvest, 30 to 40 days. They are hardy. They can take some snow. They can take some freezing temperatures. You may lose a few leaves, but the plants are going to survive. And a lot of these lettuces are what we call come and cut and come again, which means you cut them down, they're going to regrow. Not all of them are. Some of the cause or romaine types are not, or if you're trying to grow like a butter crunch, that would not be as well because you are growing it for the head. But a lot of these are come and cut and come again, and so you can have this all season. Now, when it gets warm, when it's July, these are going to bolt. They're going to send up their seed stock, and they're going to bloom. You can save the seeds. It's a little bit messy, but you can certainly do that. And I have done that in my garden. But yeah, they're not going to like it warm. So succession planting is a good idea, or maybe you want to wait and plant some for a cool fall garden, maybe late August or so. Put them in the ground, and the cooler temperatures, you'll still have some lettuce going there. Onions and leeks. Onions can be started by seed. If there is a special variety, there's one called Ailsa Craig that is a very nice onion. It's not sweet, but it's not, can be maybe not as hot, what we call a hot onion, as some of the other varieties. The thing about starting onions from seed is you got to start really early, like January. You actually start them in much smaller cells than what you see these little pots here. And what you're really trying to get the onion to do is to produce more of that bulb at the bottom. So you let it grow up maybe about 3 inches, and you cut the green part in half. And you just kind of keep doing that so that the plant sends more of its energy into creating the bulb underneath the ground than it is the green foliage at the top. So it takes some doing, and it takes some patience, but you can do that. You can buy onion sets. Sometimes you can buy the plants themselves. You'll see them in little bundles. Maybe if you want to plant a sweet onion, you can certainly do that. And leeks you can find as small plants or in a bundle as well. And we have grown leeks at Hudson Gardens. They're not going to get huge, but we have had some pretty good luck with that. And usually what we have done is we dig a trench maybe 6 inches down. So you're going to need a fairly tall plant, plant it down in there. And then as it grows, you kind of fill in that soil around it. Same thing with potatoes, which we'll talk about in just a second. And the part that you will be eating is really more down under the ground, or where that loose soil you've gathered that loose soil there. Peas, I think everybody likes peas. These are hardy, so they can take those cold temperatures. You do not want to put them in the ground when it's really muddy or soggy, because sometimes those seeds will rot, or it will be actually too cold for them and they won't grow. A couple of years, we've had clients who have complained about their peas not germinating at all. And I think it was because we had one of those springs that was wet and cold, and the soil stayed cold as well. Soaking the seeds overnight can give you a little bit better germination as well. They grow perfectly well from seed. No, there's not really a need to start the seeds indoors. They will need trellising. There are a few now, like Tom Thumb has been developed for containers, so they don't grow as tall, but most of the other varieties, the Oregon giant snows or the super snaps, they're going to need some sort of trellising system to keep the plants growing in a mannerly way, I guess. The tendrils are edible. There are shelling peas, there are snap peas. What you see here is a snap pea. Usually, unless left on the vine for a long time, those little peas aren't going to develop to be very big. Shelling peas are usually the bigger peas, and that are inside the pod. And sometimes the pod is not, it's kind of stringy. So you really don't eat the pod on those. The pods would be more for the sugar snap types, where you would be eating the pod and pea as well. Potatoes. Potatoes will do quite well here in Colorado. There are some varieties that do quite well. Yukon Gold is one. We grow these at Hudson Gardens. I grow these in my own garden. They tend to do quite well. With potatoes, you need to specifically buy certified seed potatoes. Do not take even organic potatoes from the grocery store and try and plant them. A lot of them do have a growth inhibitor on them, so they won't grow well in the ground, but certified seed potatoes, you'll have much better luck with those producing potatoes for you. And potatoes have a lot of vegetative growth of grub above ground, and then those potatoes down are underneath there. And one potato will create one large plant, but there will be lots of potatoes growing along the root system underneath the ground there. So sometimes you can grow them in containers, and that's okay too. They do like consistent moisture. On a lot of parts of the country, they put bone meal in there, but we don't do that here in Colorado. It really is just a waste of money. It's not going to make any difference in your production of potatoes. And when you harvest them, you're going to wait until those tops kind of start to yellow and die back. You can certainly take some of the newer, smaller potatoes out. You can dig up a few of those. But if you're going to leave them in the ground for later harvest, wait till those tops kind of die down, and then you can dig those potatoes up and let them just dry in a cool place for a few days before you wash the dirt off. That skin that's on there is very thin, and if you wash them too vigorously, when you take them out of the ground, you're going to lose that lovely skin. So leave that to kind of dry a bit. Sometimes I just leave the dirt on them. I store them with the dirt on, and then I wash them as I use them. But that skin stays a little bit nicer for the potatoes. And the best way to plant them, if you're planting them in like a garden bed, is just to kind of dig a trench, maybe, I don't know, 8 inches down. Put your seed potatoes down in there and just cover it up a little bit. And when the green tops start to show up, get a couple of inches, maybe 3 inches high, fill in more dirt, and it will just continue to do that until you are up at ground level. That way there's a lot of space down at the bottom for those potatoes to grow along the vegetative areas. So that's kind of the best way you can do with your potatoes. And spinach. We have spinach, of course, is rich in antioxidants. And again, it's another quick one, 30 days, and you've got spinach. It's not very heat tolerant. Most spinach is not heat tolerant. So it's going to be sending up that seed, that flower stalk and seed stalk. So when it gets hot. Now, some of the newer varieties are a little bit better about that. Some of the varieties like Noble is one that does better in hot conditions or space. But this is another one that you can do a lot of succession planting with spinach and just keep a nice fresh crop coming along every few weeks or so. And it's a good thing. There are also a number of hybrid spinach seeds that are available now that are more heat tolerant. So something to think about there. We also have listed in our list what's called Malabar. It's not actually a spinach, but the leaves taste like spinach, and it's a vining plant. Has beautiful red ribs and red stems. So it's really pretty to grow and will taste very, very much like spinach. So just kind of something fun that you can grow along with regular spinach. We'll need some sort of trellis system or pole to grow on. Yeah. So that's all the slides we have. Do we have a lot of questions there that we can talk about? See, I did really well. It's 3 minutes to 8. Are there questions that we can answer? You can unmute yourself if you would like to.
Yeah, it looks like most of the questions have been keeping up. We just had one from Mark, however, which you probably are the best person to answer. He was asking if the potato stems will root like the tomato stems. Remember, and I think he's talking about the vertical planting.
Yeah. They do kind of, they do not as readily as a tomato stem, but they do sort of, make roots along there along that stem that's underground, so that you have a really good system, plus more potatoes are going to grow along there as well. Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other
So,
questions? If you want to unmute and ask, that's okay too.
there's
Because I
3
know
more.
I went through this kind of quickly.
Debbie,
Yes.
I've never tried to grow potatoes, so I'm kind of
Uh-huh.
enthusiastic about giving it a try. And I
Yeah.
had a friend who planted them in maybe a pot and kept piling up, but you're saying dig the trench. And put the
If you're
potato-
planting it in a garden bed, yes, you could, in a pot, it would be the same sort of principle. Plant them really low, and as the plant is coming up, just kind of keep filling in with soil. Yeah, principle is the same.
Okay, I think I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
And is that a semi-hardy vegetable?
Yes, it's a semi-hardy. It's not
Okay.
going to want to be in super cold soil. Yeah,
about-
you're going to want to wait till that soil's around 45 or
Okay.
degrees or so, maybe, so let's say like 50 outdoors or so. Yeah, that old adage about planting peas and potatoes on St. Patrick's Day does not work here, right? Peas, yeah, maybe, not this year probably, but maybe. But potatoes, no, they have much more chance of rotting in the ground.
And
not-
sweet potatoes, the same plant.
sweet potatoes, you're never going to get much of anything for a sweet potato. We do not have a long enough season to get a decent sweet potato. Now, you can grow them for the vine, you can grow them for, the above ground stuff, but you're not going to get much of a sweet potato.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not worth the space. You need a much longer growing season for sweet potatoes. Yeah. Now, a little bit here. Oh, Kathy, you want to talk about this?
This slide that's up now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our contact information. If you have any questions during the growing season or anytime, we have a phone line for you to call between 10 and 2, Monday through Friday. The number is there. You can also email us and ask us questions with pertinent information on your part, and a phone number or an email to return messages to you. We'd be more than happy to help with any questions you might have. And this slide just gives you all the contact information.
Yes. We do have a diagnostic clinic as well. We're hoping to have that going this summer. You never know about what new COVID things might come along, but we do have a diagnostic clinic as well. If you have a particular issue, let's say with a plant or whatever, you could call us, and occasionally we'll ask you to bring in a sample. We can take a look at that. There is a nominal fee for doing that, or IDing a tree, or so you can certainly call or email us and ask us about the particulars for that. But we do provide that service to clients in Arapahoe County. It's slightly more if you're in Douglas County, but if you were bringing it to us. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Not right now, Deb.
No. Okay.
Looks like David has his hand up. Do you have a question, David?
Oh, I don't know how to.
Yeah, David Cromie has his hand raised.
Yeah, I don't know. How do I get to that? Or can he unmute? Can we unmute him? And
hey, thanks. Yeah,
Oh.
you had the
There he is.
yeah. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I was muted, so thanks for unmuting me. Yeah, well, I'm actually first time kind of gardener, and we have a strip of land just that's it's part of our land, but just outside of our main garden that I was planning on growing in. I hadn't thought about really doing grow beds or anything, and I was just looking to kind of just go straight into the soil. Do you initially have a place you'd recommend to get the soil tested?
We do have, if you go on the website that you see there, extension.colostate.edu, there is information on there about the soil testing lab. and how you would do that. If you, there's no grass in this area now, or is
No,
dead grass?
previous years I just planted it out in wild grass seed.
Ah,
So,
okay.
yep. So
Yeah,
like a
'cause
wild meadow.
you may need to amend that soil with some soil amendments, which we have information. We have fact sheets about soil amendments, and particularly for vegetable gardens that would be on the extension website. And that so that you would be putting some good stuff into your soil to make
Yep.
it better for growing vegetables. Yeah, you would probably want to do that, and that would be a good idea. So there's about soil amendments. There's also all kinds of information regarding what types of mulch you might want to use in your vegetable garden, as
Okay.
well as other areas in your landscape. But there's a wealth of knowledge on the website. And then if you have additional questions, certainly you can email us. You can also go to the Ask Extension, that ask2.extension.org. Questions will come through and we can answer them there. So, or call the office. I think probably that would be starting when, Dawn, like late. Well, you could do it now. We could contact you as well. We do it from home. We won't be in the office until late April, but you could also call and leave us a message and we can get back to you as well.
Okay.
Let me add this, at the community garden, we built a bunch of garden raised beds last year. We way overbought our organic soil. So we have a huge pile of organic soil that we would love to give away or sell for a nominal fee for the funds to go to the garden. Of course, it has to be transported to your garden. So I don't know, can you, and that's for raised gardening, can you amend soil with that? Or are you talking about compost and other things would need to go in there?
No, you could use that. You could use that and till it into your soil, your existing soil.
So
Yeah.
David,
Yeah.
let me know. Anybody who's here, let me know
Definitely.
if you know of anybody who needs some.
Yeah, Martha, definitely. I'll reach out. And,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain I'll need someone. More than happy to donate some money back towards the gardens.
We've got
Yeah.
wheelbarrows and shovels and just take it, it's much easier getting the dirt down the hill than it was bringing it up. So
And
Yeah.
compost, certainly you can add compost to your soil. I have raised beds at my house and containers, but we keep adding leaves and so going forward, David, you could add your own compost or like leaves in the fall that would help to amend your soil as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything
Hi.
else, anyone?
Yeah. Hi, Debbie. Jacob here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. One is out of curiosity because you said usually carrots are said to be biennial crops, right? That will last for 2 seasons. But I'm not sure how. I mean, it's a root-based stuff. If you're plucking it out or pulling it out, how it will last for the another season.
Ideally, you would want to have your carrots grow for 1 season. But sometimes we don't always get them all pulled up, like one breaks off in the ground and the next year you'll see this carrot coming up. That would be considered its 2nd season and it would send up its flowering stalk at that point. But normally you would not want to do that because it's going to be very woody. It's not going to be very edible. So the first season you grow your carrots is really when they're going to be at their very best. So you will want to pull those up, but occasionally it does happen that, one gets left in the ground or something like that. And that next year it would send up its seed stock. Now, if you want to leave a few of them, you could do that, but they're not going to have good flavor. You would only be growing them to get the seed.
Yeah, even if it's heirloom seeds, it won't taste
Even
good,
heirloom seeds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All carrot seeds Really, and that goes really for all vegetables except for those perennial ones I talked about: asparagus, horseradish, rhubarb. All vegetable seeds basically are one season. So that's their life, that's their lifespan. The fruit that we get is really their reproductive. And so the seeds in there, right? So the vegetables that we grow, it's just a one season thing. If I didn't make that clear, I apologize.
Absolutely, Debbie. Thanks a lot.
Oh,
and
you're
one
welcome.
more question. One more question is, I've read somewhere in one of the links you shared initially, for mulching, we can use pine needles also, right?
You can. One of those garden myths that's around there is that around in the gardening world is that pine needles increase the acidity of your soil. They do not. They do not increase the acidity of your soil, and you can use them. I would tend probably to use them more in my perennial beds than in my vegetable garden. Just personal, I think it would be okay. Am I right, Dawn? I'm if Dawn's on here, but I would tend to use them in my perennial beds, rather than in my vegetable garden. But they will not raise the acidity of your soil.
Okay, that's a question I had actually. Any coniferous trees, the leaves will increase the acidity. So if it's tested and proved that it won't increase or alter the acidity, that's excellent news.
Yes, and it is a garden myth. Lots of people, we get a lot of questions about that. If will the pine needles raise the acidity? It's very difficult to raise, to actually lower our pH so that the soil is acidic. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to do with our soils. It's not going to happen. This is why we don't grow blueberries. Now you can try them in like a peat, bin or whatever, but where our soils are not are naturally more alkaline, and it's very difficult to lower that pH.
I see.
That's why we don't have great azaleas either. There are some varieties that they are bringing along for more alkaline soils, but we don't get the great azaleas like they do in the East and the South.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Kathi, did you want to say anything about what we're doing next time before we lose everybody here? Oh, maybe she's gone. She might have something.
She's just muted.
Okay. Oh, she unmute herself.
She's working on it, I think.
Okay, good.
Hello.
Yes. Sorry.
Next time we're going to be talking about the warm season vegetables, and also going over a couple of lists that we have for you with specific varieties of vegetables. This comes from Deb, who has been using these for years and has really done a lot of legwork over that time. I think you're going to be real happy with the suggestions that she comes up with. We'll show you how to use that, and then we're going to go into container vegetable gardening as well, which might not be something that you want for your community garden, but in your own backyards and in your own landscapes, you might want that. So we'll talk about that briefly as well.
We actually have quite a few pots up there that we put some things in.
Okay.
And we are going to have an on-site raised bed gardening workshop that Adrienne Jones is going to teach. I can't remember the date of that. It's in April at some point. So, or maybe late April or May. But anyway, we're really looking forward to yours coming up about the warm season gardening.
Well, listen, we all want to grow tomatoes, right? I mean, cabbage is great, but let's get to the tomatoes, and we'll get to tomatoes next time.
That's great.
Yes. Okay. If there are no other questions, we are so happy that you had us come and do our Zoom thing here. And hopefully you've learned a lot tonight
It's
and
been wonderful. Yes.
yes, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie.
Yep,
for
thank
your time.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye. Deb,
Yep,
you still there?
I'm still here.
Pretty good, you know?
Good.
Is everybody
Did it
gone?
go okay?
Oh, I think so.
Good. Oh, Donna, I heard the thing go out 10 minutes. I loved it. You did great. She sent me these texts that says 20 minutes left, 10 minutes left, 5 minutes. I did well. Didn't I do well?
You did great.
Yes.
I was busy. So was Dawn, busy in the chat.
I saw there
Yes.
were a lot of
Yeah,
a lot of them. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for doing that.
Yeah.
I just made things really easy for me. I could just keep yammering away.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did great. No, it was a good presentation. Matter of fact, I took lots of notes myself.
You guys know these things. You do.
Well, yeah, but
All
it
right.
doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
reinforce it, you know?
Okay.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. All right, sweetie.
All
Well, it was
right.
good. It was good. Thank you
Very
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
Dawn,
Thanks,
you,
Dawn.
ladies. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.